Before we begin, the title is written in the right-hand corner of the screen. Enjoy watching.
The story begins with everything being fine. The king being congratulated on his coronation and the saint on her marriage. Everyone happy and nothing portends trouble. The saint is thanking people for their support, for their sincere emotions, and at this moment, the guy notices that something is wrong with her. He looks closely, and I saw a kind of frozen expression on her face, like the girl was thinking about something else and not focused on reality. She didn't even notice it herself, apologized, and then pretended like it was okay, started smiling, and hid her real emotions. Behind that smile is a kind of fear she's afraid to tell anyone about. At this moment, she hears a phrase that would melt any other girl. Her husband asks her not to worry because now she is his wife, and the only thing that should be on her mind are dresses and jewelry. He took her hand firmly, supported her properly, and it was very masculine. It was exactly what she had been missing. The guy didn't recognize the truth, so perceived that the lady just wasn't used to such a large number of people and didn't know how to behave properly. To him, it sounds like some kind of self-inflicted bump in the road, shyness and adjusting to a new life. But he has no idea what's really bothering her. She had to put on a mask. Perhaps at such an important moment when everyone is looking at them. It's not the time to be sad. It can be done in her room, in private. The holy kingdoms of Yohank are a bit different from other people. Their moods don't come out of nowhere. Many factors influence it. They draw their sacred power from the source of love. The more love, the more power. Alicia became a saint through Igwing, and now the growing love between them will be the source of her power. She is grateful to him for many things and is sure that nothing and no one will be able to separate them. She had a feeling from the first day of acquaintance that this man was created for her, and they are with him forever. Moreover, the people have no doubt that as long as these two love each other, there will be peace and quiet in the kingdom. And if someone or something tries to spoil everything, people can unite and defeat evil. It turns out, those who believe that the world depends on their relationship, hardly anyone will dare to separate the newlyweds because they themselves will suffer from it. The couple has not even reached their room before they are greeted by people along the way and congratulated on their marriage. It is a very bright and long-awaited holiday for every resident. Over time, the more people begin to bond their love and peace in the kingdom, the fewer enemies they have. Even those with whom the girl has not been on good terms sincerely congratulate her on this day. No one wants to ruin her mood so that suddenly, it doesn't affect the relationship. And in no way, she and Igwing have a fight. Alicia thanks for the warm words, but at the same time, she doubts very much that these people have changed and stopped wishing her bad things. She's afraid that someday the mask will fall off their faces and some will turn out to be something they're not. There's no way that girls who used to do nothing but talk about her behind her back are suddenly happy in a happy relationship and have no jealousy. Even now, when they remembered that the saint was moving into the castle, they started to get sad, like they'd been best friends all along. Suddenly, one of them apologized for detaining the lady, and lastly asked for something to be said in her ear, in confidence. The archbishop said to tell you that the girl had done her best and fulfilled her duty after the word duty. Alicia's face turned red, and she seemed ashamed of something or unpleasant to hear it. She replied that she knew it, and in fact, it was possible not to remind. The acquaintance began to rejoice, as if she had purposely spoiled the mood and knew perfectly well how the girl would react to it. It's no secret that after the wedding, newlyweds must follow several traditions that have been established for so many years now. One is very similar to the paramount duty of a saint. She must spend the wedding night with her spouse and do so in a way that shows the utmost of what she can do. So the guy gets to know his girlfriend better and understands whether she is suitable for him in this respect or not. Some couples divorce the next day because there are nuances. Someone likes one thing, someone else. And before the wedding, it is not possible to check it in any way possible. St. Joan on this night gains great strength, and depending on whether her husband is pleased with her, it depends on how much more strength she will have. The ceremony has already passed. Evening is approaching night, the stars are appearing in the sky, which means that we need to prepare for the next stage. They help her to take a bath, they bring the most fragrant shower gels, shampoos, perfumes. They do everything to make her smell good, and everything goes in the best possible way. The maids give their best, and so far, they have done everything they can. Now it's up to the girl. She was cowering the whole time. The redness from her face never went away. They even tried to calm her down and bring her in, but she refused and said it would go away. She just realizes how important this evening is to each of them. Any little thing or mistake could affect not only the marriage, but also the well-being of the kingdom. The groom is already completely ready. He took much less time than she did, but he is very understanding and has not even rushed her once. Meanwhile, they had already approached the royal family's flower, admired it, and even felt a little calmer afterwards. It's a secret treasure, passed down from generation to generation in the Zhuangqian royal family. Just look at it, and bad thoughts evaporate from your head like mist. He responds to the power of the saint, which brings divine protection to the nation and becomes its symbol. In other words, the radiance of the flower reflects her level of power. It already becomes a testament to the power of their love. The girl could stare at him a lot more, but the guy couldn't stand it. He looked at his wife and immediately grabbed her in his arms. She didn't expect it, though she knows exactly what he's implying. Time is passing, and they're not even on the bed. Very awkward situation. She was so confused that she even asked him what he was doing, even though it was clear enough. Her husband quietly whispered a very beautiful phrase that was ambiguous, and as if it hinted at how good and pleasant they would spend with her in the near future. He said that this flower would bloom tomorrow morning in all its splendor and be the best it had ever been. And then he carried her very quickly to the bed. Alicia understands everything perfectly well. She does not mind at all, but at the same time, uncontrollably begins to worry. It is a responsible evening, and in fact, the girl is lucky that he took everything in his hands and even tries to arrange maximum comfort. He is gentle with her, reassures her that everything will work out for the best, in no way rushing her or thinking only of himself. Alicia has never done anything like this and is afraid he won't like it. She doesn't want to disappoint a huge number of people, including him. It even seemed better to do it another day than to make a mistake and regret it all her life. Her husband asked her not to think about it, just relax, trust him, because together with him, she has nothing to worry about. He is her husband, who will be careful, able to stop at any time and willing to listen to all her wishes. The most important thing for him is that his wife is satisfied and feels as comfortable and safe around him as possible. When the saint relaxes and reciprocates her partner, the royal flower blooms lushly, and the more love the couple has, the longer it can last in this state. Meanwhile, the girl had already accepted that she was going to have to do it anyway. She tried her best to relax, and she succeeded. She tells her husband that she loves her very much and feels that she has chosen the right man for her destiny. Everything is very easy with him. He knows how to find the right words and is able to cope with her fears. He is the one with whom everything works out and any obstacles dissolve one by one. Some time passes. Alicia is already asleep. Suddenly accidentally wakes up and realizes that her beloved is not there. The guy's gone and she has no idea where to find him. She's got some kind of bad feeling and it seems she's not wrong. As it turned out, that wasn't the worst thing that awaited her that night. Just by looking in the direction of the flower and getting close to it, the girl saw something that almost made her faint, for she feared it more than anything else. Something had happened to the flower. It's completely fading. From every second it becomes less and less intense. Just a couple of hours ago, it didn't look like that, and you could hear its scent even in the hallway. As we already know, the royal flower continues to bloom until the power of the saint's love fades, and so it wilts because the saint loses her power. Is the kingdom threatened and their love with her husband soon to fade, as well as the beauty of this sacred plant? Alicia is shaking. She doesn't know what to grab onto. She spent hours in her thoughts, and when morning came, she immediately packed up and wanted to look for the guy. She was met by one of the maids and reminded that it was time for morning prayer, which must not be missed and should be done as soon as possible. The girl doesn't know what to choose or what to spend her time on. The safety of the kingdom and her relationship is at stake. The worst outcome she could have imagined. Meanwhile, the rumors reached the people much faster than she thought. People are outraged because they did not think that the union of the prince and the saint would fail so badly. It was simply impossible. The saint is weakening, which means that it is unknown what the fate of the kingdom is now. The more people talk about it, the more painful it is for the girl to hear it. She doesn't understand what's wrong. Everything was fine and went perfectly. There's something wrong, and she's not going to comment to anyone until she gets to the bottom of it. Meanwhile, Alicia tries to pray, but things are not going well. She can't concentrate, and tears are coming to her eyes. The helper even suggested taking a break. Maybe after an overly responsible night with her husband, she might actually be better off resting and praying a little later in the day. So half the day had passed, and the girl still had not seen Irving. He seemed to have vanished, and perhaps she ought to tell him about the royal flower. Perhaps it was because he had gone away, and if he had not, things might have been different. The girl decided to go up to the second floor of her room to change, and then she sees something that literally makes her speechless. Goosebumps ran through her body, and the words, "I love you," in a voice she knew very well and had even heard last night, made her want to fall through the ground. She caught her husband with some other girl, and isn't he ashamed to kiss her in the same house as his wife? Alicia is in complete shock, and it seems to be the reason why the royal flower is in such a terrible state now. The saint has been betrayed. That's the answer to all questions. How people will react to it doesn't bother her now. She's just hurt that he would do that to her right after the wedding. It's understandable that he's known that girl for a long time and that he's not seeing her for the first time, but why he married another girl is a little unclear. She didn't go anywhere. She purposely stayed and waited for them to notice her. No wonder her mistress didn't even blink an eye. She smiled and didn't even say hello to her. I don't care about the mistress, but the husband's reaction was very unpleasant. He was clearly not happy to see his wife, and even resented her for embarrassing them. He had never looked at her with such a cold stare before. Last night he was one thing, and today it was as if he had turned into a completely different person. She couldn't believe her eyes. And then he says something that will break her heart forever. The guy's even glad she saw it all and had something to tell her. He doesn't need her anymore, and all the love they had before, it wasn't real. The guy used her and only married her before becoming king. He got his and is now free to tell the whole truth. I can see why she was so nervous, hesitant, and unable to relax around him. Her body sensed danger and gave her clues in the form of anxiety. The only person he has ever loved is his mistress, whom they have known for more than 6 months. It was their plan together, which is an elaborate one. Alicia doesn't understand anything. She hopes it's just a dream that has nothing to do with reality. She wants to wake up and forget those horrible words forever. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen. And to make her understand better, he said it all over again. He never loved her, and he never will. He even specifically showed her the royal flower, which proves the truth of his every word. The guy throws hurtful words around so easily he doesn't even think about how much it hurts her to hear it. He offers to pretend they aren't married and don't even know each other. The mistress can't be happy that she no longer has to hide, although for some reason she still doesn't show her face. Alicia is completely broken. She doesn't understand how she could have trusted him and not seen him for what he really is. And some man comes up, he's been looking for her all this time and doesn't even realize he's come at the wrong time. The archbishop heard that there was a problem with today's prayer and wanted to know what the problem was. The girl doesn't even know how to explain everything to him, although if the man looks away, everything becomes clear. Instead of feeling a shred of shame, Irving dares to accuse his wife of losing her power and won't even tell her the reason why it happened and that he had something to do with it directly. He orders her thrown out of here, as this person can no longer be of any use to the kingdom. The saint just can't hear these words. She is in utter frustration and fears that the people will believe him and not her. The archbishop didn't even try to make sense of the situation. He was surprised and didn't doubt a word he said. Alicia was so hurt in this situation that she couldn't even explain anything and didn't even dare to tell the whole truth. She just kept silent and contained all the pain inside her. Since she says nothing, the man has only listened to one of them, and there is nothing left for him to do but obey his master's orders. As suddenly, he said very quietly, so that only the girl could hear his words. The man asked to come to church afterward. He had promised to protect her, and now he asked her to obey and pretend that she had not heard it. The saint didn't understand anything, but in any case, there is a possibility that the man understood everything, just afraid to accuse the Lord of treason, and while he will allegedly kick the girl out, will try to help her, tell the people and punish the traitor. But it's only a guess, and it would be nice to have it happen that way. At least it will be fair. Alicia is already in the carriage. She doesn't know who to believe, who not to believe. Since she can't escape, she has to believe the man and hope he can do something for her. It's evening outside. She's alone with your thoughts. Her soul is torn by betrayal and, probably, if fate brings her to someone else, it's unlikely that the girl will be able to marry someone so easily before she knows that person completely. There was a chance that this lesson might be her last. The terrain where she was now was very unlike the road to anywhere, and they'd long since passed the right corner. She was told they were going to church and ended up where there was not a single person around. It was empty. There were only cliffs and empty fields. Suddenly, the carriage stops. and the saint realizes that something is wrong here. She hears some voices outside, and among them, her name is heard. And then some person comes in and they act so disrespectful, like it's not even necessary. She's not usually treated like this. This man is too suspicious and looks like he's very excited about something. He feels in charge here, and is left to hope that her safety isn't threatened. He's too sure of himself and doesn't inspire any confidence. He didn't bother with her, started grabbing her by the hair and hands, threw her out of the carriage and ordered her not to shout too much. They closed her eyes, led her straight to the cliff and ruthlessly threw her down. Alicia calmly closed her eyes and began to pray for a second chance because she believes that in this world, people live several lives and this is not the end. She says, if only she could go back in time. She would never allow herself to be treated like this, which means she's not interested in a new life. She wants to correct her own mistakes, but for now, it sounds too fairy tale and unlikely to be possible. At some point, the girl feels someone's touch and feels that she does not fall down but rather regains consciousness as if nothing happened before that. Alicia realizes she's been given a second chance, but she doesn't realize it until she's in real time. As soon as she opens her eyes, she forgets everything, hears the smell of her husband and his voice, which makes her feel ambiguous. In short, the girl has forgotten her fall, but at the same time, she remembers how this man did to her and knows that she has returned to the past. For her, it is unknown only how it happened, but the fact itself is known for sure. She ends up at some flower festival, people holding the exact same flower that wilted after his betrayal. Looks like a sign that she must not forget why she is here and what her immediate goal is. Irving must not deceive her. It's the day he's going to propose to her. Now it's up to her whether she says yes or no. If you remember that her demise could come 3 days after the wedding, it turns out that time is too short. You need to either prevent the wedding or make everyone see his real face. Even if it's down to her seeing him with his mistress again, she definitely shouldn't keep quiet and should try to get the truth out to everyone. The girl sees him in front of her and immediately remembers the moment when his eyes were too cold and filled with hatred at the sight of her. It was so awful that if it happens again, Alicia will give up and miss her second chance. She herself realizes that it will be much easier if she doesn't let this moment happen. She needs to act now before he says those awful words again. In the end, the saint didn't come up with some ingenious plan. She made things much simpler. She just pushed him away and asked him to stay away from her. It seemed to her that if the wedding didn't happen, she'd have a lot more time to get back at him and show people who they admired and did it for nothing. Also, one must not forget that if he had not become emperor after the wedding, no one would have listened to him and treated her like that. Accordingly, one must not only take revenge on him, but also not allow him to have the opportunity to command someone. His status must remain at the same level. Luckily, she has a lot more credibility than he does, and so far most people will be on her side if anything happens, which isn't a bad thing. I really wonder how he'll react to this behavior and whether he'll propose a second time. People are already eager to see how it ends, because they expected something different, and the girl herself did not expect such a thing from herself. She thinks it's some kind of dream where she made a wish for a second chance. Didn't really think about it. She even pricked herself on the rose on purpose to see if it was a dream or not. She was in a lot of pain, which means it's real. She's very scared now, but when you remember that her life depends on it, it's better that way than to let herself and the whole nation be deceived. She plans to save not only her life, but the entire kingdom. And if she's given the chance, she should take it to the max. The only thing left to do is to test your power. For this, you need to heal the wound. Think about it, and everything will heal immediately. If not, it means there is no power. The girl tensed up a lot. She believed with all her might that everything was all right. She looked at her finger and it was as if there was nothing on it. This is very good news that will bring justice and punish those who deserve it. Meanwhile, to maintain his reputation, the guy doesn't give up and even approached her as if nothing had happened. Started smiling, acting like he's been in love with her for a long time, and it's actually kind of creepy. She keeps trying to get away from him, pretending she wants to enjoy the flowers just to avoid touching his hand. He purposely approaches over and over, dares to hug and tries to take control of the situation. The guy gives her more compliments, doesn't let her say a single word, all so she doesn't screw up again. It doesn't matter to him which way he goes, he just has to become her husband, get the throne, and that's it. People are slowly starting to get along. They're interested in seeing the sequel, and of course, so that no one doubts his sincerity, Irving tries to kiss her. Any other guy who has been turned down for marriage would never stay this persistent. This man just doesn't care. Nothing stops him from reaching his goal. He's too good at faking it. He's used to doing it for a long time. It literally costs him nothing to kiss a girl he didn't love in the first place and was rejected from just a couple minutes ago. Alicia realizes you can't tell the truth. No one will believe she's gone back in time and knows where this is going. She's so disgusted to see him in front of her that she wants to punch him with great force so that the guy can't even look in the direction of the other girls. How she'd never noticed what he was really like before, and naively thought that there was no profit in this marriage for anyone. It was all for love and nothing else. Now I see why he didn't even ask what happened, keeps acting as if everyone's memory has been wiped and no one remembers anything. She felt how hard he pressed her against him, didn't even let her move, and whispered in her ear that he wanted to make her his wife. There's no escaping now. He's made up for his mistake and he's not going to back down. I wonder what will happen if she says no. Although it's more likely he'll just go back to doing the forgetting thing and repeat it until he gets his way. Alicia asked her not to bother her anymore and said that if she ever saw him around again, it wouldn't do any good. She so badly doesn't want to go through it all again that her body won't let her tell him, yes, I agree. A little over 10 minutes later, the saint is at the bridge, and sure enough, it's like a script. The guy's right there. It's like he's stalking her and won't let her take a step. It's a little suspicious. But she holds on and tries not to show that she's starting to get scared to be alone with him. The girl already knows what he's capable of. He doesn't love her, which means he could hurt her or worse. The girl is already asking what he's doing here, and isn't 2 times enough to realize she's not going to marry him? This crazy guy doesn't even surprise her anymore. He keeps thinking she's too naive to believe that guys like her like that persistent. Had even memorized her favorite flowers, put together a bouquet on his own, but it still wasn't enough. At least not now that she had gotten to know him fully and completely. This traitor can take a whole field of flowers. Nothing will help him. He won't change. The lady wanted to go back to her room and asked not to be disturbed, but he grabbed her arm anyway and wouldn't let her do so. She starts to get tense with this control, insistence, because it is not known what will happen next. He also says that today the girl is strange and different from usual. Not like that, it's the one you can't control. Uncomfortable, opinionated, and not like you were before today. The guy got into character, started being romantic, and asked to tell me if she had any questions or concerns. Igving's never had to work so hard to get a few minutes of her attention before. Before, the girl couldn't live without him for a few hours. But now she's calmly pulling away and it's disrupting his whole plan. In order not to let it drag on for a few more days, he had to explain that there was nothing between them and could not be. Alicia had stopped believing in love, and there was no place in her life for someone like him anymore. She responded very rudely, asking him to vanish from her life. It would be better for her and more. Until this moment, the guy couldn't even think that it would end like this. He had managed her so easily before. This kind of thing in his mind was simply not possible. He thought he knew her too well. She was not capable of talking to him like that, for she had said how she dreamed of having a wedding and being the happiest in the world. After that, now he definitely can't repeat his favorite scenario. The girl's words put a final stop to it. When asked why she is behaving this way, she boldly and aggressively replies that she no longer loves him and sees no point in staying if she can find someone else and not make mistakes. She's not going to go along with him, even though outwardly she looks very angry. Inside, she's totally relaxed, like she's gotten rid of the biggest problem in her life. She is. The girl has never behaved like this and actually likes it. She felt for the first time that she takes control over her life and clearly understands what will happen next. It does not depend on someone else, on the mood of other people. Alicia herself creates her own future, and it will be amazing. She is already returning to the garden where everyone saw her last, and surprisingly, people are still there. They were waiting for her return to say something. The girl expected questions, surprises, but everyone around her was angry, as if they didn't agree with her decision and could influence it. She was stopped by one of the girls she knew, and she did it in a very ugly way, as if she was ordering her to stop her from going on. She had a glass with a drink in her hands, which was already on Alicia's face in a few seconds. It was very unexpected and humiliating. The drink is so cold it made me want to run away somewhere and wash all that stickiness off me. I can only hope she puts it back in its place and not be afraid of it. The villains of this villainess begin to smile, which is immediately obvious. They are all in on it and were deliberately waiting out the saint to show how they really feel about her. These 3 used to be nice acquaintances, but now they are just unrecognizable. They say it's her punishment for shaming the prince, publicly rejecting him and doing it several times. It turns out that there is no coincidence in this. Except for this girl, no one would dare to do such a thing, all because she has long been in love with Irving, is part-time daughter of the Count, and often looked at the saint with envy. The girl had guessed it before, but had never thought her upbringing would allow such a thing to be done. The envious woman did not miss the opportunity, and said that many, like her, had long hated the saint and were looking forward to a situation like this so they could stop pretending. It was expected, but surprisingly, Alicia didn't even cry. She's holding up very well, and seems to have already figured out what to answer that, and how to put her in her place. She even smiled on purpose, which made the envious girl even more angry. Her whole face even turned red from it. The girl did not do as usual. She is not going to tolerate, forgive, and very quickly thought of a way to take revenge. She slowly walked over to the well while saying some distracting phrases and very quickly drew a full bucket of ice water. It is already in her hands, and the interlocutor understands perfectly well that the saint obviously did not want to drink fresh water. She will do something else with it. The lady mercilessly pours this water on the three of them, saying that someone needs to freshen up and realize who they're talking to. They're very lucky the girl isn't as awful as some to retaliate in other ways, but if it happens again, everyone will regret it very much, and that's something best not allowed to happen. Naturally, there were those who called Irving out. He just came in and got the whole situation a little wrong. I decided not to make up anything extra. I just walked over and asked what was going on here. There was a lot of noise around, so I asked to calm down as well. He didn't really want to get into it, but on the other hand, he couldn't make it seem like nothing had happened. Yes, who was secretly in love with him, began to accuse the saint of pouring a bucket of water on her, though she did not explain that she had started first. Strangely enough, Alicia didn't explain everything in detail. It was made much simpler. She told me that she saw a bee flying nearby, just scared that it might sting someone and people just misunderstood it and that's what happened. Unlike the others, only these three didn't believe her. They started looking for evidence and tried to make the saint guilty. Well, it just so happened that the bee was actually very close by and they had no arguments left anymore. They are in complete shock. They don't even know what to say now or if they should even try to do it. Alicia has admirably outsmarted everyone and remained the winner. To make it look even more convincing, even though she didn't want to, she went up to the girl and told everyone how glad she was that she hadn't been hurt and that she'd been able to save her. Right after that, came closer and whispered a warning. Whether they recognized her and her friends or not, she was still a saint, and as long as that was the case, justice would reign here forever. There is no place in the kingdom for villains and those who hide behind an innocent mask, especially since the punishment was not so cruel, and she should be grateful for that. Then stepped away from her, and for all to hear, asked the girl to change her clothes so that she would not catch cold in any case. As I was a little wet myself, I decided to change clothes, said goodbye to the people, and quietly went to my room. At least wanted to do it before the guy grabs her in his arms, won't let her get out, and wants to help her do it. People are as shocked as she is. He's been rejected and he keeps trying to please and pleases as soon as he gets the chance. The girl does not hear, but people began to change this opinion. Those who had loved her before began to admire even more, because it turns out that she did not retaliate to the rudeness, but did a good deed and remained a saint even in such a difficult situation. On her way to her room, she doesn't know how much to yell at him, what hurtful things to say to him so that he won't ruin her life anymore and forget she even exists. She's not just disgusted to be in his arms, she's disgusted to live in the same kingdom and realize the guy's around. Not only is she already in his arms, but he's letting himself go too far. Alicia is nearly shaking from the abomination, and he's not embarrassed at all. She couldn't help herself. She screamed and asked what he was doing. There's nothing he can do to save this relationship. Turns out the guy just smelled one drink on her neck that the girl had never had, then realized it, and given the recent situation, one of those girls poured his glass right on her. He even knows who it is and promised to talk to the Count a little later as soon as he had time to do so. She doesn't really like that idea, but knowing the man, he will never back down and will do it even if she begs him otherwise. She explains that Irving will make it worse this way and asks to hear her say for once in her life, "You don't have to do that." She reminded him that she wasn't getting married and that no matter how hard he tried, it wasn't going to work out. She's already given him her final decision and it's not going to change, it's impossible, so he shouldn't waste his time on it. And then even more professional acting comes into play. Beautiful words begin, as if the girl could think that his feelings could change because of a simple refusal, because it doesn't work like that. He'll always love her no matter what, no matter how much she hates him, which means Irving is more serious than she thought. This is getting nowhere. She started to pull out of his arms. The girl is a free person and he can't ignore her freedom so easily. As usual, she failed. The guy was stronger, grabbing the girl as hard as if it was his last chance to get the throne. The moment he put her on the bed, she was the happiest person in the world. He no longer touching her. And this was what she had waited a whole 7 minutes for, though it seemed like it had come much longer than that. Alicia was sure that was the end of it. He had shown a little courtesy and would now leave, but that was just the beginning. She asked him to leave the room, to leave her alone. And he says he's not done yet and he's not going anywhere for half an hour. The guy predicted to slowly strip off everything unnecessary and did so with a look that made it scary to even resist. Her mind was full of thoughts, fear, even a desire to run out of the room, for this was too much. And as it turned out, she misunderstood him again. Irving remembered that the girl was soaking wet, and to keep from catching cold, she must change her clothes now, and then touch a little closer, touching her hair and asking what she thought that made her blush so much and get nervous. The saint is so tired of these mood swings that she can barely contain herself. If he offers to change, she has the right to ask him to leave, because they are not married and he is not allowed to see her at this moment. He's even now meaning to say he's going to stay here and help. That's a direct disrespect of personal boundaries. Alicia didn't let him get so cocky, quickly kicking him out of the room and hinting that she'd think twice about walking around with guards again. He oversteps his bounds, thinks he's allowed everything and takes advantage of the saint's kindness, which she has a lot more of than the rest of us. But there's a limit to everything. The door closed and even words could describe it. How she relaxed and exhaled at that moment. She had never thought she would be happy about such small things. I'm surprised she was able to do it at all and he gave in so easily. Usually it's the other way around, but it seems like someone was tired and even wanted to rest themselves. The girl didn't even move away from the door. She closed her eyes and thought, if she had the chance to go back in time, she was very eager to change the course of events a bit and go to a time when she hadn't even met this man yet. Meanwhile, a few hours had passed and at last she had time to eat breakfast in peace. It was half the day, and she had not even had time for that. Saint invited her sister over, told her the latest news, and she was a little sad that such a lovely couple would never be together. The girl explains that she's rethought a lot of things. Some things she can't tell the others, and no one will ever know what's wrong. She asked to just accept her decision and not try to influence it. It turns out that even to her own sister, the girl cannot reveal the true nature of the prince and the fact that she has returned to the past. It would be better if people knew only what they were supposed to know. No more, no less. The sister took Alicia's hand and asked her to memorize that she will always be on her side no matter what happens. She realizes there's a problem, but to mind her own business, she just accepts it and decides to be as supportive as she can be. That's a very valid point, and if everyone around us thought like that, it would be a lot easier. Alicia is very grateful to her for that. It was over. It was time to get back to business. And lastly, the girls agreed to meet up in the near future and have such a nice chat again. They hadn't done it for a long time, and it would be worth bringing the tradition back again. The two of them really missed these conversations. Afterwards, it becomes somehow calm and much easier to go back to the problems after support and understanding that they are not alone. The sisters have never quarreled and can't even remember the last time they thought badly of each other. It seems impossible and will never happen. Miranda left. She wished her well and has no idea that most likely the day the couple reconciles will never happen. And suddenly, the girl sees two maids who are very scared about something. She decided to go over and find out what's wrong. Turns out one of them cut her finger on the broken glass and immediately apologized that the saint had to see it. Actually, there's nothing wrong with it. She even wanted to help and asked me to show her the wound better. Alicia hadn't encountered something like this in a long time. There were no sharp objects in this house, and it was rare for anyone here to get injured like this. But she wasn't confused and helped the man right away. Literally within seconds, there was no trace of the wound. She did it very quickly and asked to be careful. Of course, the maid is very happy. Now she will not prevent her from doing her favorite work and to clean up the order. Alicia was very glad she was helpful. It had been a long time since she had helped anyone, and she remembered how wonderful it was to be helped. And suddenly, at such a beautiful moment, a man appears who very quickly spoiled her mood as usual. He offers to go out with them, but he doesn't just ask, he brazenly takes her hand and pulls her along with him. The saint has no idea where he's taking her and knows it's no good. It's weird. But they're very close to his room, and does he really want to go in there with her? She has too many questions already, but for now the girl silently observes, saying, "I guess he'll explain it all himself now." She's frozen in one place, very afraid that he'll do something she can't let happen at all. Otherwise, all efforts will be in vain, and the second chance will be cancelled at once. The guy proposes to have a very serious talk, discuss possible problems, and come to the point of getting married after all. He pretends that it's very important to him and he won't let her be offended for a single day, even though the girl knows perfectly well what he's really doing it for. She explained that they had nothing to talk about. She had figured it all out for herself a long time ago, and she wasn't going to listen to his voice for one extra second. And then he asks her to look at something that contradicts everything she says. It's the same royal flower that's supposed to be gray. But now it looks like they have incredible love, mutual feelings, and no problems. He looks really good, just like when she genuinely loved this man and dreamed of a happy future. Only, there is a question. If she knows for herself that she has fallen out of love with him definitively, then why does the flower look good? If he, moreover, has never loved her, and there is no one among them who can have real feelings. It's all too weird. The flower shouldn't have been in such good condition in the first place. But she doesn't even want to think about the fact that this man could suddenly love her. She has no words for it, wants to think about it a lot, read his mind, and know exactly what it's all about. He starts putting all these facts together, that he's going to run after not to the end, that the flower blooms and smells, that it's better for the people, and says it's all proof of their love. The guy pretends that he doesn't understand why he deserves such an attitude, starts throwing wood on the fire, so to speak. And when he waited for her to answer, the girl just pushed him away and this time forbade him to even touch her. She has not so much patience as he thinks she has. And as for the flower, she really has not lost her love for him. But she rejects the man only because that she didn't believe him and she wasn't even afraid to admit it. She explained that he wasn't sincere enough and there was a feeling that he was leaving too much unsaid. And meanwhile, since he wanted to talk about the relationship, she agreed to do so and asked to be allowed to start first. She demands an answer to one question: whether it is true that he is only obsessed with her because she is a saint and may benefit from it in the future. Any other person in his place would have been surprised, but it was as if he had prepared an answer and said what she would have wanted to hear in the same second. She asks him a different question, but with the same meaning. The guy has already realized that she suspects him of something and still won't take off his mask. And the moment she said she knew the truth and even heard him say it, he was literally speechless. This man blushed for the first time and started to get very embarrassed. Alicia smiled and said that he had just confessed everything himself, and now he had to answer the question of how they should have a normal relationship, given everything they had just discussed and learned. If her personal position is suddenly not enough for him, the girl reminded that in case the royal flower spoils, a lot of people will suffer. You need to think only about yourself, but also about others. She had just turned around and started to walk away when he grabbed her arm again, turned her around, and asked her to listen carefully to whatever he was about to tell her. He remains a man from whom it is never clear what to expect, and this scares her very much. With each situation, when things get more and more serious, she imagines the worst possible outcome. The girl does not cease to wonder that who would have thought that he needs that throne so badly, that for his sake he is ready to disgrace himself and humiliate himself in front of everyone, running after her literally everywhere. If she were to be honest with him right now, she would tell him that she liked his behavior, and if their feelings were real, she would be the happiest, because she knew he was willing to do anything for her and wasn't going to stop after the first rejection. It's a shame he's only like this when he needs something. The guy literally kisses her through force and gives the impression of a prince for whom nothing is unattainable. Alicia remembers what she came back to the past for. She bites him sharply and pushes him as far away as possible. Her feelings are unlikely to ever go away, but there's nothing she can do about it. Trusting him will ruin her whole life, and no one guarantees a third chance. She yelled and asked how he could even allow the thought that she was there, who could be held by a simple kiss. If she said they had no future, then there was none, and no need to embarrass himself. He's just wasting her time and can't realize that she's not someone who can be easily deceived and taken advantage of. He did manage to let her go, but not for long. He decided to go back to the office to think things over and figure out how to proceed differently. Only he walks in and takes a seat at the table, gets a huge number of documents that need to be signed soon, which means personal life is put off for later. He does everything with such an expression on his face that even the aides have noticed that something is bothering him. They are peeping at him and have been discussing it for a while now. Some are even afraid to come in to avoid angering the master and adding extra work to their punishments. It's strange that they never realized what his problem was. The whole kingdom is talking about his personal life. In fact, they would never have noticed his mood if they had not been so free, the gentleman being too engrossed in his private life that he had forgotten to hand out some business to them. Meanwhile, some knight comes to him, apologizes for disturbing him, and says that he has come on very important business. He wants to ask permission to conduct expeditionary exercises with the knightly order. Mr. promised that he would review this document a little later and give an answer by tomorrow. There is no way to do it earlier because so much other things have accumulated in these couple of days. The knight thanked and also noticed that the Lord was a bit different than he was used to seeing him normally, at the same time afraid to ask, for at the very least it was none of his business. It's better to find out from someone else. Or maybe someone else will come up to tell him something. That happens too. But suddenly, the knight quickly changing his mind and allowing himself to add something, the Lord asked what the matter was. And the man changed again and explained that he just wanted to say that he thought it would be better for the good of the country if he and the princess made up as soon as possible. You could expect a storm of emotions, outrage, but I guess the guy just doesn't have the energy for all that. He just agreed and said he was working on it himself. Meanwhile, Alicia is already near the royal flower. She came here to remember the times when she naively believed in the prince's love. No matter how busy he was with his duties, he always tried to find a moment to visit her, even just for no reason at all. Came to fetch her in the chapel when she was tired from her daily prayers, and never came without at least the slightest bouquet of flowers. And was the first to notice the bad feeling, coped with it in minutes, and a simple kiss was enough for that. Now I see why the guy now thinks it's like a pill for all problems. Can't tell you how painful it is to remember how happy she was when she didn't know anything yet. Today the girl was more tired than usual. She was thinking about it too much, and when that happens, the power of prayer weakens. It means that next time she will have to spend twice as much time here. If things go the same way, she will lose all her powers again. Accordingly, you need to find something she can love to balance them out. She doesn't even have any hobbies. Other acquaintances with whom she could think about relationships. Absolutely nothing. The girl was so much dissolved in the prince that she didn't notice how he became her raison d'etre, and she wasn't interested in anything else. Alicia remembers very well that people often said the same phrase as if warning her that the same thing could happen to her. It is believed that when a person is in love, they don't notice any flaws in their partner, and more often than not, it can be very dangerous for the one they want to use. She is angry at herself for falling into a trap, and even when she finds out the whole truth, she can't do anything about it. She has fallen in love with him sincerely and genuinely to the point where she can't even change it through force. The guy has a huge advantage and he knows it very well. The girl is even afraid that sooner or later, just give up and agree to his proposal. Meanwhile, she had already gone outside to unload her thoughts a bit and happened to hear someone behind the bushes. It was a little dog that got hurt, and still no one helped him. Of course, she couldn't pass it by. She's a saint who's supposed to help him. We can only hope that the strength is still there and the prayer worked. Otherwise, it won't work. It's strange, but the doggy starts biting her finger, as if he won't let her near him and forbids to touch her. He's very aggressive, though he wasn't like that before. Very curious about what happened to them. And as much as she didn't want to think about it, apparently someone had thrown a small rock at him. She finally did it. All it took was a touch and no more wound. This little guy smiled and let go of her hand right away. It was so sweet that Alicia even relaxed for a second and forgot about all her problems. She remembered that this was what brought her the most pleasure and distracted her from bad things. Got the idea why not do what she does best, which is to help others, so she can help herself and people. The little dog didn't even want to go anywhere. He started to look at me with eyes like he had found a new friend. They look really good together, and of course she couldn't let him go. He's so nice to be with that we can assume it's definitely not the last time they'll see each other. Maybe it's a sign that she loves animals a lot. And all this didn't happen by accident. The two of them are so cute you want to watch it for a very long time. She hasn't had such good moments in a long time, and it turns out that it doesn't take much. Unlike some people, animals aren't capable of such horrible things, and she can be much more confident in her new friend than in others. In those few minutes, she had gotten so used to this animal that she didn't want to let him go. She wanted to go back into the room with him, if of course he wanted to do that himself. The girl checked, tried to let him go, and he didn't want to. They ended up agreeing that she would get back to him later, and in the meantime, she had some things to do. That's what she told him, and in fact, she wants to get some rest and sleep in her room. Sounds a little strange, but actually, it makes sense. Her strength directly depends on it. No one knows who else will need help, and if she can't do it, she'll lose the mood for all the money she has left. On the way, the girl meets some unwanted fabric from them. She needs it to make a little crib for her new friend, where he will be soft and warm. She just thought about it and already became very happy. As usual, the guy shows up at the worst possible moment and ruins the mood with his mere presence. He even looked that way, as if he didn't know what he was about to do to her, started to walk very aggressively towards her. And then he grabbed her by the shoulders and started to get into another argument. It turns out, as usual, he was scaring her with his stare at first, but in fact, he had just noticed a small wound on her arm. He just wanted to ask what was wrong, even though there was nothing he could do about it anyway. It didn't even make sense. She could help herself more than he could. Just as the deputies appeared nearby, he turned on the acting just in time and started reacting as if something serious had happened. And so much so that he didn't even let her explain. Alicia wanted to say that she wasn't in pain, and it looked worse than it was. Even though he doesn't care if she's in pain or not. In front of other people, he has to play the loving prince who cares a lot. Had only to explain to her that it was a small dog bite. It gave him an excuse to order her to be found, and the office brought in immediately. The lady regretted telling him the truth 1,000 times, because if the guy did anything to her new friend, she just wouldn't survive it. It turns out he doesn't even care about the situation. He just wants to show that he's willing to get rid of anyone, as long as people continue to see him as someone he benefits from. It is a shame that he only puts on this mask, but in reality, this man does not deserve the slightest respect from the people. If they only knew what he is trying to achieve, they would be disappointed in him once and for all.